going to introduce Paul Hall, who's Head of Growth and Operations at ShareScope. Paul, it's all yours.
Very much, Mark. Yes, I'm obviously from ShareScope. I'll be delighted to demonstrate what it can do for you as a private investor. I'm also a member of the Signet Group in Enfield, so some of you may be Signet Group members yourselves. I'm just going to start by sharing my ShareScope presentation. Okay, the ShareScope being a platform for private investors to help you with making better investment decisions. So I'll run through a bit about us, the products we offer, and I'll talk about the ShareStock offer, but I'll come back to the ShareStock offer at the end of the demonstration. There'll also be opportunity for Q&A. So we've been around for a while. We started in 1997, a company founded by Martin Stamp. You can see his picture on screen. Martin himself, being a private investor back in the 90s, he found that he couldn't find a platform that catered for all of his requirements as a private investor. So what he decided to do was build that platform. That platform is the ShareScope platform we now have today. His vision being a service which combined stock market prices, company results, news announcements, charting, and portfolio management. So it really is a one-stop shop. We're dedicated to enabling our subscribers to become confident, independent investors, and we complement that with our unlimited training and support, and that's from our support team based in Shoreditch in London. It's very easy to contact us. We're available Monday to Friday by telephone, by Zoom, WhatsApp, email, and a chat room built into the Scope platform. And over the last 28 years, we've won many awards from the likes of Investors Chronicle and Shares Magazine, to name a few. Just pointing out, our feedback online has been fantastic. Over 600 reviews to date, and many of those reviews coming in at 5 stars. It's a real testament to the level of support that we provide to users of ShareScope. And I'm just going to read out one of these. ShareScope has a powerful filtering and charting ability, regular educational pieces, responsive customer service, and openness to feedback. And I second that. Certainly in terms of the ongoing development of the product, we're very much about listening to the ShareScope subscribers, understanding what their wants and needs are, and making sure we align that with how we improve and develop the platform going forward. So our main platform is ShareScope. It offers 15-minute delayed prices and live news. Very good market coverage in terms of UK, US, Canada, and European stocks. But not just the equities, you've also got access to the funds, the investment trusts, the exchange-traded funds or ETFs. Lots of indices, perfect for benchmarking purposes. That includes things like the sector indices. We've got very comprehensive UK news courtesy of the RNS. And to cater for the US and Canadian investors, we've got the MTN, which gives you really good comprehensive US news coverage. The filtering and stock screening is very comprehensive. You can filter and stock screen on pretty much any metric you can see in the platform. And the portfolio management is excellent, certainly in terms of tracking your portfolios, your investments, but also doing that drill down analysis. I'll demonstrate that today. And it works on any tablet. It's entirely web-based, working on your PC, on your laptop, on your MacBook, on any of your devices.
Paul,
yes, Mark.
Sorry to interrupt. I am only seeing the headline of your slide, which says for investors and traders. I'm not seeing the 2 boxes that you're talking to.
I'm whizzing through. Bear with me.
I think somebody's put animation on your slides. Yes.
Yes, someone has.
Yeah, I think you might be better presenting like that, just or ticking forward on the full screen so that it comes up on the screen, because at the moment we're not seeing it. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you for doing that, Mark. It's really helpful. So I was just talking about the product offering. So ShareScope is the 15-minute delayed product. It's the one that most private investors would be using. But for someone who needs a bit more, we offer ShareScope Pro, and that will give you live price feeds. It will give you level 2, the level 2 order book, and that's for the LSE listings. I'll talk a little bit about why customers commonly switch over to us from other platforms. So the pricing structure is great. We charge a subscription fee, and that's £35 a month for ShareScope, and that gives you everything as standard. So that's going to give you the UK, the US, Canada, and European stocks. A lot of other platforms will give you the UK and then charge you an add-on fee to get some other markets in there. We've got the funds and the ETFs. I know some other platforms don't cater for that sort of thing. And we've got the AQSE or Aquis. That's a smaller UK-based stock exchange, commodities, crypto. And for those who like to do the macro analysis, we've got the economic data. We've got FX, gilts, futures, treasury yields, lots and lots in there. Unlimited portfolios. I know some other platforms will give you maybe a maximum of 10. Fast news, so you're getting live news, whatever subscription you go for, you're getting a live news feed. And a lot of customization in there. Again, I'll demonstrate that as I go through. CGT is catered for with a recent update to cater for the mid-year rate change. And lots of customization. There's no in-product advertising at all. That's something you might see on other platforms. I'll come back to this at the end, but we are running a promotion with ShareSoc. Normally you'd pay £35, and that's a monthly fee when you sign up. The promotion gives you 3 months for the price of 1. You can also pay for an annual subscription. We'll adhere to that offer by giving you 2 months, so you essentially get 14 months access instead of 12. And anyone who's a first-time subscriber, you can get out easily if it's not for you. We offer a 30-day, and that truly is a no-quibble money-back guarantee. And you'll get unlimited one-to-one training and support from our team. The promo code is on screen. It's ShareSoc offer, and you'd put that in at the checkout on our website. Okay. Now I'm going to just change what I'm sharing. I'm going to share the actual ShareScope platform and start showing you what it can do. See if I can make it bigger. Okay, so what's the things I'll be running through. So first of all, which markets we cover. So I'll put that on screen for you. A little bit of customization. That'll be a recurring theme as I go, because there's a lot of customization on here. Where to find the financials, what screens you should use if you really just want to focus on a single stock or a single company. And I'll show you some nice stock comparison tips as well. I'll do some market screening. I'll show you how to use the news feeds, and we'll look at portfolio management and portfolio tracking. There's normally interesting charting as well, so I will include a bit of charting as well. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to click on this other lists button, and the reason I'm doing that is so you can very quickly see what you get with ShareScope. So you're getting very good coverage of the UK. You've got the London Stock Exchange, you've got NASDAQ and NYSE, Canadian markets fairly recently added in the last couple of years, and European shares courtesy of a secondary stock exchange called STIBO. That's fantastic for you as a subscriber because that's giving you that European access, but we're not getting that directly from the individual exchanges, and therefore we're able to keep your subscription fee nice and competitive. And you'll see on there, you're getting the funds, you're getting the ETFs, and some of that macro data I talked about, the economic data, the sector indices, and so on. In terms of the customization, you're going to set this up so it works best for you. So I was engaging with a Signet group where they focus primarily on the US. So for them, it was very logical for them to take something like the US 500 market and just drag that up here. That gives them a one solution to quickly look at that market when they need to. Clicking on that now, what you're going to observe on the blue side of the screen is the entire list of over 500 listings on the P500. On the green side, what we have is an interchangeable display, okay, and it tracks whichever stock you're currently looking at. So I'll click on something like Amazon, and you'll see on that green side, I'm getting all those financials on Amazon. What you're seeing at the moment is what we call a financial dashboard, and this has been designed in a way that caters for, you know, a quick glance. It's color coded. Green is obviously good, red is bad. But the benefit of this design is at a quick glance, you get an immediate feel as to whether this company is in a state of good health or bad health. Now, when you want to drill down a bit more into the numbers, what I typically do, I'll jump into initially something like the income statement. I'll get the full detail initially. You see, that's already pre-built, pre-structured. You're not having to spend any time setting this up. You'll have this straight away. And it works top down. So top of the income statement, you've got things like the turnover or the sales, cost of sales, and that drills down into profit and so on, as you can see. I don't always need to see the full detail, but it's very helpful for me to, on occasion, switch to a summary. I'm just clicking on a summary button, which is at the bottom of the display. You see that strips away the full detail, really giving you that focus on just the headline metrics. It's a lot easier to digest that way for me. And I'm also going to click the forecast button. That's just a quick way of getting 3 more columns on the right-hand side. And so I've got visibility into the years ahead and what's expected. Sometimes when I really want to focus on a single company, I use what we call single page. And I'm just going to take my mouse and click on this button at the top. If I hover over it, you'll see it says single page summary. This may be familiar to people who have used other platforms. It's a sort of screen intended to allow you to focus on one company only. Again, headline metrics on screen and complemented by some mini charts. So you've got those graphics and a quick understanding as to how that turnover has changed over the long term. You know, is it on the up or is it on the down? Scrolling down on here, you're going to have things like the news headlines that you can click into, and that's just your quick way of getting to the actual news articles. And you've got some useful color-coded metrics as well. So, for example, like financial health, obviously green meaning, you know, this is healthy. It's the ShareScope score. If you want to understand a bit more about, you know, what you're looking at there, you can actually click on that. That'll pop useful information on the screen so you can understand a bit more about this metric, why you might be using it. Now, when I've finished with single page, what I'll do, I'll just take my mouse and click on that page button again. You'll see that just drop back down and I return to the standard ShareScope display. I had an interesting question from someone recently who wanted the benefit of both. At the moment, you've got the entire market on that blue display. Wanting to see that stock screen at the same time. I'm just going to hold Shift, clicking on single page, brings it up within that green environment. And now I'm in a situation where I can quickly toggle between different entries on the blue side and see those appear on that single page view. So why might you use the blue side? So if you've got all the companies on there, obviously you can do some nice comparison. So I'm going to go to a smaller market. I'll just go to the FTSE 100. And you can order or sort the market based on any of the metrics on screen or any of the columns on screen. So what I mean by that is, you know, here's a PE column. I'll double click on it. You see that's in numerical order. So it'll make it very quick and easy for you to spot the companies with the large PEs and versus the low PEs. And that logic is true to any column on screen. So, you know, you might want to spot those companies that are the highest yielders, for example. Okay, so you really do have full control here. And you're going to customize this. You're going to add your own columns. But when you're new to ShareScope, you're going to have access to a lot of pre-built, ready-to-use columns. And you're going to be able to screen them using what we call the setting menu. I'm just going to click on that. So you'll see that pop up on screen. And I can switch to one of my different settings. And you'll see what happens here. Clicking on momentum, for example, retains the FTSE 100 stocks. So the stocks that are on the list, that's unchanged. The only bit that has changed are the columns, and therefore the data I'm getting these 100 companies. This is going to be really useful for you if you just want to quickly understand which stocks are, the best performing. Take any time frame you like. So, for example, I'll look at the last 6 months. A double click on the column puts that in order, and you very quickly realize that IAG are the best performers at almost 90% up over the last 6 months. I'm thinking about, how you'd actually use this in your day-to-day. I'm thinking about the stock comparison aspect of this. So let's take a company like, let's pick maybe one of the house builders on here. I'll start with Bellway. They're actually on the FTSE 250. That's okay. Something I use is the restrict button. Now, this is a really quick way of working. The toggle, you can turn this on and off. Turning it on gives you that nice focus. So you're only looking at other companies in the same sector. You're getting all those peer companies grouped together. At the moment, that's the house builders in the FTSE 250 sector. I can broaden that. I can go to other lists and say 350 and a few more on there. So obviously at the moment I can understand which ones are the best performers. Probably haven't picked a very good sector here, but because they're all down over the 6 months, but that's okay. So maybe I want to look at this graphically. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hold shift. I'm going to select all 7 of them. And then with a right click, you've got a really neat feature here. We call it the multi-graph. It's a nice graphical way of plotting a number of different investment opportunities side by side, so you can understand which ones are performing the best. And it's a relative plot. You can see everything's benching at that 0% level on the left margin. And you can zoom in on any time frame. So I'll start by actually extending the time frame, just going up to the menu at the top of my chart, telling ShareScope I want to look at a 3-year picture, for example. And everything, as you can see, rebases at 0% level. But you can also click and drag. Click and drag to select a portion, release the mouse, you zoom in on that selected portion, and you're getting that comparison analysis on screen very quickly. And one more thing I'm going to show you, which is pretty neat when you're comparing like-for-like companies, switching back to my setting called Equities Overview, because that's got the PE. So this is a metric you might use when you're trying to understand which is, the best value investments. Maybe some of these are a bit too expensive. Maybe their PE is a bit high. But with a right click and really nice bit of comparison analysis, you can run some column stats. And that's going to give you the average PE based on that sample data. You also get the weighted average. Really helpful if this is something you're typically calculating manually in Excel. You're not going to have to do that anymore, obviously. Okay, I'm going to click on the restrict sector button again, and that's just so I return to the entire market. Great. So one of the primary reasons for signing up to a platform like this is going to be and this is going to be your way of putting into practice any of those analysis techniques you might have read about, maybe in an article or in a Investors Chronicle, for example, maybe in one of our articles. So whenever you want to filter the markets, you're going to click on the filter button, and you click on apply or manage filter. Now from here, you'd be able to access all of those filters you've already built. So you're not going to have to build them again. But just so you can see how this works, I'm going to build on from scratch. I'm going to click on that green new button. This is my ShareScope demo filter. I'll click on OK, and I'll just go into that filter. And what you're going to see is initially it doesn't do anything. You've just got all the stocks on the market on screen at the moment, but we're going to start adding some criteria, and that's our way of telling ShareScope what it is we're looking for. I'll do something pretty simple, and it'll give you an idea of how this works. So clicking on the Add Criteria button, this is what you're going to see, and you can go through the different sections. There's lots on here. You can have a look at what's available, but my advice would be, if you know what you want to filter on, just type into the search box. It's going to be a lot faster. So I'm just going to start typing the word turnover. That's what I'm looking for, and there you go. It's right at the top there. I'm just going to select that from the available results. And you've got a lot of data in here. So you can specify to ShareScope what the data you're using. You've got the most recent year-end figures, but you might want to do something historically. So you could go back in time up to 10 years. And remember, you've got 3 years of forecasts in here. So you've got up to 3 years of data that you could work with looking forwards. The sort of analysis I don't want to use the actual value of the turnover. I'm more interested in the growth. I'm selecting this option here. And I want to look ahead. So it's 1 year forecast growth I want to look at. Clicking on OK. That's going to pop that in. I've got that information in the column, which is really helpful. I've got visibility. The more powerful aspect is when you start imposing your restrictions, you start in ShareScope what it is you're looking for. So, for example, I don't want any companies that are going to see their sales decline. In fact, I want at least 10% growth as an example. So 10 is my minimum. Clicking on the green apply button imposes that restriction, and very quickly you can see in brackets 42 matches. So you've already significantly reduced the size of that, the size of that list you're looking at. So it starts to become a bit more manageable. You can start getting a bit of focus. Let's just build on that, just add criteria again. Same sort of thing. I'm looking at not just an increase in sales. I also want to look at companies where their earnings are expected to increase. I'll go with something like EPS. And much the same, I'll just look at the 1 year growth. And again, go with that 10% minimum as my example. Okay, so now we're down to 27 matches. But you really can filter on anything. So if anyone has any questions at this point, they want me to filter on something specific, feel free to suggest something. For now, I'm going to look at a bit of safety. For something like gearing, for example. It's a nice way of measuring how much debt that company is, and how much debt that has, and ensuring it's at acceptable levels. You'll define what acceptable levels mean. So, for example, we have Spire Healthcare, 163% gearing is pretty high. It's probably a bit too high. Just impose that maximum ceiling. I'll be quite liberal with this. I'll say maximum 50% gearing. Hit apply. And there we go. We're removing anything that's deemed a bit too risky. You'll see a few zeros in there. That just means they're companies that currently don't have any debt on their balance sheet. Right. When you've finished with the filter, you're just going to hit that exit button. That's the way of returning to the unfiltered environment. That's your way of seeing the entire market once again. I'm just going to click on that now for you. But just to demonstrate, that filter's retained, it's saved. You're not going to have to build that again. So when you want to use it again, next time you log into ShareScope, just go back to filter, apply or manage filter. You'll find it on the list. Clicking OK, all of your criteria and your restrictions are remembered. The other thing that's worth knowing is this filter is ready to go. It's ready to use across any market you like. So at the moment, I'm running it on the T350 stocks. I want to have a quick look at the US markets. I want to see what opportunities are on there. Let's just switch to US 500 and you see you've got 36 matches. It'll be a really nice and fast way of working. Once you've built the filter, you can run it on absolutely anything on here. Now, you're not restricted to filtering on financials. We cater for technicals as well. So this is a nice segue into charting. I'll start with something quite simple, something like a couple of moving averages. So I'm going to do a bit of customization. I'm just going to the add button at the top of the chart. And I just want to view moving averages. So I've got the 200 exponential on there already. That's the gray line. I'll edit that. To help it stand out a bit more, I'll make it more prominent. It'll be in red. And I'll go with simple smoothing instead of exponential, just to demonstrate that you can really customize this. Clicking on OK, you'd see that change. Perfect. Let's just add one more moving average. So clicking on create, let's go for something a bit shorter and make sure that's in a different color so we can distinguish. Great. So this is something that's fairly commonly used in my experience. It helps spot entry or exit opportunities. Maybe we want to identify stocks. I've recently seen the 50 cross above the 200. in that sort of situation, don't go through, you know, hundreds of different charts one by one. Let's just streamline that by adding a column that will do the work for us. I'm going to click the Add Column button. Our focus is now on the blue side, and I'll go into the section. This is a nice demonstration for you because it will show you that you can use what we call combine items. Okay, so item number one is going to be the value of the 50-period moving average. And then I'll say combine items. So this is your way of telling ShareScope, I want to take two different metrics and make them work together. So my second item is going to be the value of the 200-period moving average. And then you can specify what the relationship is between the two of them. So you see you've got a lot of different options on here. Something like divide by, very useful when you're building your own custom financial metrics. In this case, I'm just going to use something really simple like 50-period moving average to be greater than the longer term 200 moving average. And there you go. You've got a quick way of identifying all of the companies that currently exhibit that behavior. And you can double click on that to make sure all of those ticks are grouped. Okay. Brilliant. I'm moving on to portfolio management and portfolio tracking. Right, so another key reason to have a platform like this is to track your investment, obviously. So I'll start by showing you how you would build a portfolio. Going into the portfolios menu, I'm going to create new portfolio. So this could be, for example, my ISA. And you'll specify a portfolio type. You've got the normal portfolio, which is what you're really going to be using, but there will be occasions where maybe you'll want to amalgamate the content of two or more portfolios into one environment, and a group portfolio will cater for that requirement.
Paul, there was a question on that, just saying, can you give an overview of portfolio groups and how others use them, please?
Absolutely. In fact, what I'll do, I'll build the portfolio initially in what we call a normal way, and then I'll group two of them together so you can see why that would be useful.
Thank you.
Okay. You would also specify a portfolio currency. You've got 4 options there. Okay. And that should align with your trading account. But your trading account would be in a single currency. I'm okay. So a brand new portfolio doesn't have anything in there, so you need to know how to add things to your portfolio. Got a couple of ways of doing it. Add to portfolio button, you can search for a share. Type the name, the ticker. If it's a fund, you could type the CDOL or the ISIN to quickly find it. Something like GSK, for example. And because we cater for the US market as well, you'd need to specify which specific listing you want. I want the LSE listing. And now that's in my portfolio. That's now on the list. Let me just add one more. I'll show you a different way of doing it. But add multiple shares. This is going to be really handy. If you already have this information somewhere else, you can just copy and then paste all of those tickers in here to quickly populate the portfolio. I'll just add Tesco and MKS, I think it's Marks and Spencer. I'll do a lookup. And you see it will very quickly identify those for you. It's detecting TSCO could relate to something else. So you've got the toggle there just to ensure you're getting the correct entry. Yeah, very useful. Okay. I promise I will come back to group portfolios. I'm just going to move on to the transaction aspect of this, because this is where you tell ShareScope, you know, what your investment position is, how many shares have you bought, how much have you paid for them. And it's really useful to do this if you want to then see, you know, your profit and your loss figures on here as well, so you can track all of that. So on the green side, I'm going to what's the transactions view. And I'm going to start by adding a transaction. Works with whatever stock's currently highlighted. So it's GSK in this case. And recording a buy, this allows me to tell ShareScope how many I bought. I'm just going to put some dummy data in here. How much I paid, say £12 a share, and on which date. an arbitrary date there in 2022. Clicking on OK. ShareScope now understands. It knows how much I paid. So it knows what my cost is. It knows what the current day value is, obviously, because it just uses the current day share price. But it's crunching that portfolio figure for me, that profit figure for me, and it's giving me that percentage return. Now, a situation where you'd need a group portfolio. So I'm just going to build another portfolio very quickly. So that's my SIP, or my ISA, sorry. But I might also have my daughter's ISA. Because you can track your entire family's investment activity on here if you need to. Also within my daughter's ISA, she's going to have things, so I'll put you in here. You don't, just so you know, you don't have to go here and type, go to search for a share. You can do it from the markets. So I'll go to the FTSE 100 market so you can see how that works. Something like British Land, for example. With a right click, you can add selected share to, and that's the most recently looked at portfolio. Or you just click on add select share to portfolio. That's really handy. You can just choose which one you want to add it to, or you could just build a new portfolio at this point if you want to.
And Paul, if there's a fund in the portfolio, do you have the capacity to include that?
Yes, absolutely. I'll show you that now.
Thank you.
Just so you can see, British Land has just gone in. With a fund, you don't even have to click on anything. If you're searching, if you want to search for a fund, you can literally just start typing on your keyboard. So I'm just going to start typing Fundsmith. You'll see that happening. I haven't clicked on anything, just started typing. It finds all the matching results, as you can see. And what's quite handy is this all results button. So clicking on that pops all of them on screen in a list. Now, you don't get a lot of financial metrics, any on the fund. So you might decide to use a different setting in this situation. Just jump into your setting menu. You'll see you've got a ready to go setting called funds. That will be ideal. You get some of those Morningstar ratings. You can sort on the fusion type columns. You spot the accumulation versus the income. Actually, there's a column not on here, but it's one I'd recommend using just to ensure you're getting the correct funds. So I'm just going to right click here and go to add another column. The column I would use is the ISIN. Just going to type it in here. Specify where it's going, insert left in this case. Because you're going to get that ISIN on your trading platform. So this is your way of ensuring you're getting absolutely the right funds. So like the iUnits accumulation, right click, add that to the portfolio. And then you'll end up in a situation where you just want to see your entire family's investment activity in one place. That's where the group portfolio comes in. So it's going to amalgamate everything for you. So creating that new portfolio, family investments. I'm just giving the portfolio a name, a sensible name, and this is a group portfolio. As soon as you click OK, ShareScope wants you to specify which of your portfolios belong to this group. I'm going to add my ISA and my daughter's ISA. Click OK. Everything's in one place. We're going to click on the My Portfolios button just so you can see a nice quick access environment. So that's a toggle. You can turn that on or off. And your group portfolio is expandable here, which is really nice. You can get the individual valuations on screen and the combined group valuation. Something to be aware of when you're working on the group portfolio, or when you're looking at the group portfolio, I should say, that transaction screen is specifically a read-only environment. That just means that you can't actually record any transactions. Those options will be grayed out, but that's okay. Just go into the individual portfolio when you're ready to buying or selling activity. Again, just some tips and tricks really. So in here, I've recorded that purchase in 2022 on GSK. I've probably received a number of dividends since then. You're not going to have to enter all of those dividends manually. You're just going to head down to the add transaction button and then check for dividends. That's just going to be a very quick check. You'll specify where that check should start. So you'll input a date. And then once you hit the check button, Scope's going to detect, based on your purchase date, which dividends you'd be eligible for and which ones have not been recorded yet. That's important because you don't want to record them more than once, obviously. And of course, clicking on add will quickly pop all those in there as dividend transactions, and you see that's driving your overall profit figure. Like the dividend will contribute towards realized profit. Now, a really nice feature on here that I use is I think of it as the drill down analysis, and I've already prepped what's called an example portfolio. Just into that one. So I've only put 3 things in here: Fundsmith, Scottish Mortgage, and Vodafone. And you can see it's really simple. It's just a single purchase on each of them. The bit that's important is the valuation. So I've got a portfolio here valued at about £25,000. You see how that value is split at these 3 different investments. I want to look at the analysis. I want to understand that a bit more. To go into the analysis, you can start understanding how your portfolio value is exposed across different. It'll help you with maintaining diversification and making sure you're not overexposed to any particular category. So that could be, for example, based on regions or countries. It could just be asset types. So it could be I've got 40% of my portfolio value exposed to investment trusts versus 29% into the fund, equities. And I really like the drill down. So this is ShareScope understanding where Fundsmith have invested and where Scottish Mortgage have invested. And that's your secondary exposure really. So something like Meta Platforms, well, 4.6% my portfolio value is exposed to that. And that's expandable. I can understand how that's derived. So 2.6% via Fundsmith's activity, the other 2% via SMT. Okay. So it's going to be really useful for you when you're rebalance portfolio time to time. Right, I'm going to move on to news flow and then we'll move on to Q&A. So looking at the FTSE 100 market, I'm going to put the news on the green side. And starting actually at the bottom of the screen, I just want to point out the different feeds you've got available to you. You've got the RNS, that's the regulatory news. MTN is going to be great for the US markets. That's from MT Newswires. And you also get Alliance News. That's all included. Alliance News is that more journalistic news service. And just to share, I tend to have mine configured like this. So I've only got the RNS turned on. That's typically what I'm using. At the moment, I've got news for current share. So that's just tracking whichever company I happen to click on. I'm going to get news for that company. But you can also tell ShareScope to track current list. Now news for everything on that FTSE 100 list. And on occasion, I'll use all news. That's just everything in one place. And that's handy for when I want to see the latest news stories as and when they break, because they'll be at the very top. Let's look at the current list. Okay, so I need to streamline my news a little bit. I need to make sure that important news stories are not missed. And I tend to use highlighting really to help me do that. Clicking on design at the bottom of the news display. Then go into the highlighting tab. I've actually got some in here already. I'm just going to remove those so I can show you this from new. This is what it would look like for you as when you're new to ShareScope. So we're going to click on this green add button. That's going to give us a highlighting environment, and we're going to specify a color for that. I want something that's going to really stand out. And clicking on that blue button, that's going to give me access to the news codes. I'm going to use the regulatory news categories. You can select as many of these as you need to. So I typically want to know about the financial reports, final results, half year. I'll do one more, maybe two more trading statements. Advanced notice of result. Actually, that's pretty handy as well. So clicking on OK, I've told ShareScope to highlight these types of stories for me. And then as I whiz through the news, as you see, these stories really jump out. You're not missed them. And that's going to be very handy when you're looking at your portfolios. Remember, you can tell it to track the current list. So it's only tracking those 3 companies in this situation. The other aspect of highlighting, so going back to the design button, going back to highlighting, you can add another highlighting environment. So I'll go for something like red indicating bad news. And you can be on the news codes, it could be on keywords or key phrases, something like disappointing or profit warning. And you can just revisit this as and when you discover there's additional phrases you should be looking out for. Just come back here and add to your highlighting if you need to. You will tell ShareScope as well, should it be looking for those words or phrases within the headline, within the story, or both. So you really do have control over that. And clicking on OK, those sort of stories would really stand out. They will jump out of the page. You won't miss them. Mark, how am I doing for time?
We're 46, so these things generally run for an hour. I have no issue with running past if you want to. You've held on to all of your participants -1 so far, which I think is a record. So people are interested. So I would. I've got a couple of questions that I'm just going to fire at you so that you can deal with them as and when. Exports to CSV.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. I think on the graphing there's probably a need to just run through a single company level the building of graphs or the accessing of graphs.
Yeah.
There's a navigation question. If you're somewhere and you want to go back or return to an original screen, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And I think those are probably the key ones at the moment. I also we didn't look at fund analysis. I don't know whether it's worth having a quick run through fund analysis.
Yeah.
And I've got a cheeky question, which is probably unfair, which is integration on using Open Finance. Whether there's anything in that regard.
Open Finance. So that's a separate platform.
Well, no, that's using the interface rules for accessing people's bank accounts, broker accounts, and the rest of it to pull the data down. So rather than, because at the moment, in my understanding of what you're showing is that effectively it duplicates what's going on at the brokers, but there's a manual input involved, and it's a question of the auto retrieve from a Hargreaves Lansdown.
Yeah, I like that question. Okay, I'm going to address that question first, actually. So cool. Yes, absolutely. Recording each individual transaction one by one is going to be time consuming. Certainly if you've got an investment portfolio spanning 15, 20 years or so. My recommendation would be just going into the options menu, utilize what we call import portfolio from file. Okay, it's going to allow you to import transactional data from a CSV file, so essentially a spreadsheet. It does have to adhere to specific formatting, but that's okay. We've got a downloadable template you can grab, and then you can see exactly the formatting required. It's nothing you wouldn't expect. It's going to be things like the transaction date, the type of transaction. Is it a buy or a sell or a dividend? Quantity, price paid. The identifier is obviously really important. As long as you've got all of that information in the CSV file, you can have ShareScope very quickly import it, and you'll have all your transaction activity recorded on here very quickly. Okay. Exports to CSVs. Yes, so there's lots of exports available on here. Pretty much whenever you see a sharing button, that's your way of getting the information out of ShareScope. So, for example, looking at the FTSE 100 list, and I've got all these different columns on screen. You can go to sharing. You can click on export table, Okay, FTSE's put some restrictions on me. I'm not allowed to export their information, but let's look at a portfolio sharing export table, and you'd specify what sort of output you want for your price columns, everything in pounds, everything in pence, for example. I turn off the currency symbols just because I want to do some calculations in Excel. As soon as you hit export, we'll just generate that CSV file. It just goes into your download. You can open that in Excel. And even on something like the financials, obviously there's a lot of data on here and it goes back very far. I'm just going to click on the scrolling button here so you can see data on GlaxoSmithKline going back to the 80s at this point. Yeah, go back to 1982. Loads on here, and all of that is exportable. Going into that sharing button, you've got export. It's going to put all of that in a spreadsheet for you. Do let me know if you're hoping to export something else that I haven't covered there. The navigation, yes, maybe you want to go back to something you were looking at previously. You could utilize what we call the history window. I'm just positioning my cursor towards the top of the screen there. Clicking on that will put it on the screen. And you'll see ShareScope is remembering your activity. It will remember which stocks you've looked at in recent history, and you can click on these to quickly jump back to them. And remembering your actions. So if there's something you've done recently and you can't remember, you'll find it on here. You can click on these to jump back. I tell a lie. You can't click on them to go back, but it's reminding you of where you were. So view, that was my view change to prices. And what that refers to is earlier today, it's just the price on a stock. Fund analysis. And so let's start with the list of funds, retail funds. So you've got close to 26,000 funds on here. There is a lot. If there's a specific fund you're looking for, again, just type to search. So at the Fundsmith earlier, it doesn't have to be Fundsmith. If someone has something specific they want me to look at, just let me know. The I-class accumulation units. You may have guessed I hold that one. That's why I keep going to it. And on the green view, there's a lot of useful information here on the funds. So just look at the financials. So on the summary, we've got the Morningstar rating, the ongoing charges, we've got the investment style, whether that's growth or income or blended. You've got the 12-month yields. You've got the comparison here. So you can see the top funds in that sector or the top investment trusts in the sector. And you've got some toggles here. So that's top funds over the last 1 year. Looking at the longer term, you can look at funds over the 5 years or over the 10 years. And I'm going to look at the drill down in a moment. So here we go. We've got the other share classes and we've got the portfolio. So we can start understanding where is this fund invested. So this particular fund's got 9.1% of their investment activity in Microsoft. Okay. It doesn't have to be on the holdings. It can be on the top sectors where they're exposed, geographical, based on regions, and asset types. That is in stock, cash, and in stock. Just for full transparency, that's based on the top 10 holdings. That's the data we have in the platform. A really neat feature here, actually. So, let's say you've already got investments in, let's just use this fund as the example. So we already have exposure to Microsoft. Okay? Maybe we want to avoid other funds already up Microsoft. I'm just going to switch to funds. So I'm just going to add a column that's going to help me avoid those. Clicking on add column. This is really neat. This is what we call the 10 column. So just top 10. There you go. And you just click on that choose button. You specify a company. So I'll go for Microsoft as the example. And I'll just tell ShareScope it needs to search the entire universe, so it finds what I'm looking for. Yeah. This is really handy. It's going to be a really quick way of you identifying all of the funds that are going to give you that Microsoft exposure, whether or not you want to get that or avoid it. This is going to be helpful to you either way. And you can add as many of those columns as you need. So you can very quickly identify all the stocks that are exposed to Tesla, for example, to Alphabet, whatever you want.
And there's a question as to whether or not you can get similar pie charts. I suspect I know the answer to this for funds as you showed us for the stocks.
So that's going to relate to pie charts I showed you related to the portfolio exposure.
I would imagine geographic, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do that myself, truth be told. So I'm just going to quickly add a portfolio. Just a portfolio. Quite pedantic when it comes to spelling. Okay. Add to portfolio. Let's pop one of the funds in there. Doesn't have to be Fundsmith. It's just find more about Lindsell Train. One I was looking at the other day. Global funds, income units, accumulation units. And once that's in the portfolio, that analysis I need. So even without me recording any transaction data, just giving me that information based on Lindsell Train itself. So I'm getting that pie chart. Let's look at regions. So fairly even there, 38%.
And is that all top 10 based, or is that whole portfolio?
That would be top 10 based, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So can I hit you with another? Oh, sorry, there was a graph question just to run through the graphs at single stock level.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot you can do with the graphs. So I'll give you a bit of an overview. I'm just clicking on that chart button. Again, it's on that green side, so it's just in whatever it is I'm looking at. I'll look at the trader was one I was looking at the other day. Okay. So you've got that initial control I spoke about earlier where you specify a time frame. So at the moment, I'm looking at a 1 year picture. But if you want something longer term or shorter term, you can control it from here. You can also specify what sort of data is being plotted. So at the moment, every single plot point there represents a day of market activity. But you could be more granular. You can have 1 minute data on chart. That's not going to work over a yearly time frame, but you typically zoom in when you're doing a granular analysis anyway. So looking at the last 5 days, for example, you can get 1 minute data screen. Remember that click and drag I spoke about. So that's your way of zooming in on a selected portion. Okay, so you can do that as well when you're looking at your charts. A double click is your way of snapping back out. So it's going back to the 5 day that I had selected. I'm just going to go back to a long term 1 year picture, daily plots. Those plots at the moment, I'll just zoom in on them actually, are what we call open, high, low, close bars. So it's plotting those 4 data points. But you've got a lot of options on here. Some people don't want that intraday noise, so you could just have the close line. Some people prefer candlesticks. I tend to use candlesticks, and then I'd customize this by embracing a bit of color just to help me spot, the up days and the down days. Just going into that briefly, you've got the design button at the bottom of your chart. And in here, I can specify a coloring mode. So I measure the close versus the open on each candle. That's my way of defining up and down. So I want up candles to be blue. I want down candles to be red. I'll just preview that. And then I tend to fill those rising candles. So now I've got a nice way of quickly spotting when the market's up or down. But there are other lesser used, I suppose, chart types on here, things like Heikin-Ashi. That's got a bit of traction. People use that. And point and figure. So you've got the plots there based on price movement, each circle representing a box size, in this case 1%. I would go for an all-time on a point and figure. That would make more. And you can just drag to navigate around that chart. You can zoom in on it using the buttons at the top, so you can make the X's bigger or smaller. For the investors, I think the total return and the reinvested return is quite insightful. Especially if you're mindful of your dividend income and using that to measure your performance. You can, instead of looking at a price plot, you can get that total return plot. The impact of dividend income being taken into consideration there. I'd recommend using a percentage scale if you're using something like this. That would probably be logical. Going down to design, going to style. Yeah, these is where I should go. You can specify what's going to be on that axis. Tell it start at 0%. You're getting a percentage performance there. Reinvested total return. If you are reinvesting your dividend income, then you're probably going to see a bit of compounding and a bit more growth. So the reinvested total return chart is going to be a reflection of that.
Fantastic, Paul. We're at the 1 hour mark, and
Okay.
there is now a drop off. You're now conflicting with tea.
Of course.
So what I'm going to suggest is we rattle through very quickly the remaining questions. First one is AI. Is there any AI capability in the system?
That's a fantastic question. So I'm asked that a lot these days. I'll give you the short answer. The answer is no, not at the moment, but it's something we as a business are mindful we need to sort of do more with. We're mindful that AI is here and it's here to stay. So it should be feature in the future or shift.
Super. There's a question: did you say it's possible to buy or sell using the system? I think the answer is no. You can't.
No trade execution through the system.
Okay, that's clear. Can you identify shares with the most traded volume on the day?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to share that quickly, or?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So you can add a column, and it's really simple. Add column, and then just type volume into search. You'll find it straight away.
Fantastic. I'm going to keep asking while you're talking. I'm not sure I understand this question entirely. Has ShareScope considered correlation of the market with Morningstar data?
I'm not sure what that question means. So I'm keen to know more.
I'm not entirely sure. I was seeing some Morningstar information on your fund analyses, so I presume there is Morningstar data in here.
Yeah, they're one of our primary data suppliers. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that might be what's going on. I think on funds you were clearly showing some Morningstar, so we may have answered that on the way through. There's a comment, just to be clear, the charts I was referring to, the green button financial chart, i.e. building individual bar graphs, line graphs, etc., plotting share price, EPS, for example.
Yes, I know exactly what they mean. What I'm going to say to that is I've got a 40-minute long YouTube video on that, which I'll share with you, Mark, or Pavlina.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. If you could, that would be really good, and we can distribute that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And on a chart, can I show when I bought or sold a stock?
Yes, absolutely. On the chart. So obviously I've got those dummy transactions on GSK. On the chart, you're just going to add what we call events. Okay, and there's a number of events on here, specifically portfolio purchases and sales. Okay, and you can see that's just flagged on the chart there. You click on it, you can see how many you bought, how much you paid.
Fantastic. The last comment is a good one to end on. It says, "Thanks, great demo," and I'd reiterate that. I think it was very interesting, much more competent than I was expecting. I have to say, very impressive indeed.
Thank you, Mark.